record this message. Good morning, everyone. Absolute pleasure to be with you all this morning. We're at the end of January, getting ready to hopefully either be attending the launch event in Chile, which is coming up, or perhaps be attending the event in Salt Lake City. I know some of us are split in different directions for that, but it's exciting to see all the different things that are going on and kickstarting the year 2020. Of course, we've got the New York event coming up in April, the 45th anniversary of Nikken being in business. So if you haven't purchased your tickets yet, if you haven't booked your flights, if you haven't reserved your hotel rooms, now's a good time to start getting that done, because frighteningly, we're literally just 3 months away from that event as well. And it's going to be a spectacular experience. I want to talk today on a subject that is typically the subject of Mike DiMuccio. So Mike, I hope you don't mind me jumping in on this. But the subject that I want to talk about is the law of attraction. I have read recently that there has been some scientific evidence that has been supported in the field of research and science and academia that supports, sustains, endorses this incredible law of life. I want to share this with you today, 6 ways that we can apply more effectively the law of attraction into our lives in a way to harness its power, untap our own full potential, and make better use of the opportunities that we have available to us. This law of attraction is very real. The challenge is a lot of people misunderstand what it is, how it works, and what they can do about it. It's not a wish list. It's not something where we just throw out good intent or nice desires into the universe and expect that it will give us everything back in return. And we need to understand also, there are things we can control, and there are things that we can't control. There are things that we have influence on, and there are things that we have no influence on. A friend of mine just recently fell 30 feet from the 2nd floor of a building, broke his back, and sustained some severe injuries, which I think is going to see him in recovery and rehabilitation for quite some time. He's an incredibly positive person. Did he wish that upon himself through the law of attraction by having a bad attitude? Well, of course not. Of course he didn't. That's not how it works. However, what we do see is how he will approach that will probably be very different to how many others will approach it, because he does understand this principle of this universal law of attraction, how it works, and how he can move forward and progress, improve, recover, heal, and also turn it into some pretty defining moment of his life that I'm sure he will make full use of for many years to come. So there is a doctor here. Let me just put her name. 1 second. So Dr. Tara Swart, she teaches at MIT and also at King's College in London. And she mentioned that in the study and research on the subject of the law of attraction, that in many instances, the field of science tends to disregard philosophical, psychological kind of methodologies such as this. She said, but there is now an abundance of evidence that supports scientifically the value of this law. And so she identifies 6 ways, I want to share them with you today, that we can tap into and utilize the law of attraction. She said the first one is to have an abundance mentality. She said what that means is that we have a belief within us that there is enough of all the good stuff to go around. I want you to think on that for just a minute. And before I go further, I would also like you to think, if you could have a better set of circumstances, if you could have a better business, if you could have more ideal outcomes in your life, what would they look like? I want you to visualize this for just a minute. What would it be like for you in a few years' time if you were achieving your ideal? What would your Nikken business look like? What would your personal life look like? Your relationships look like? If you were achieving your ideal? I want you to get concrete with that in your mind as we go through this. because what I'd like is each to do is apply some of these principles so that we can work towards achieving that ideal and claim it as ours. I firmly believe that this process gives us the chance to do that within the scope, of course, and the parameters that are ours to work within. Like I said, there are some things that we don't have control over, but on those situations, like I said, my friend falling and breaking his back, in those circumstances where we don't have control, we do have influence on the outcome based upon how we choose to respond. There is a space between action and reaction, and that space is called choice. And that piece there is ours to claim. Okay. So anyway, going back to the first step, abundance. She said, we need to have a belief that there is plenty of the good stuff to go around. She said, those that have an abundance mentality, that believe that there is plenty of the good stuff to go around, she said there are some knock-on effects, some consequences that are profound. She said the first is, because of that belief, when they approach difficult times, they have greater trust in the future and that things will work out, because they have a belief that there's good stuff going around and plenty of it. As a consequence of that, they have a greater level of endurance. At the same time, she said, because they believe there is enough of the good stuff to go around, they are more generous in nature. What's the consequence of that? She goes on to explain, of course, that that extra sense of generosity that they exude becomes infectious, and it leads to increased connections, positive connections with other people as a result. However, she said, there is a flip side. If we don't have that abundance mentality, if we don't believe there is enough of the good stuff to go around, there is also a knock-on effect with that too. And she said that people that lack that belief are driven more by fear versus by optimism. And when we are more fearful in our decision-making processes, when we have more of a scarcity mentality, then we're not going to be that generous person that attracts people into our lives and builds greater connectedness with others. She said we're going to be more fear-driven in our decision-making. We'll be less inclined to take risks. And when we're less inclined to take risks and live within a fear zone or a comfort zone, then abundance certainly doesn't come to fruition. So it's interesting, isn't it? There's this antithesis that takes place, a chance to move and progress and achieve more, or, interestingly enough, regress and achieve less, become less, connect less. It's interesting that. She said the second thing that was really important as well, the second principle after abundance was manifestation. And I really like this. She said, I'll read this out. It says, Dr. Tara admits that the concept of manifesting success through positive thinking has often been dismissed by other members of the scientific community. And she concedes that thinking of a good thing doesn't necessarily mean it will make it happen. However, what she did explain is what we need to do is get focused. When we talk about manifesting, it means we put all of our attention and focus on our ambition, dream, or goal to make it happen. She said, one of the problems that many people face is they don't get focused like that. They may get a pay rise or a promotion and go, I'm doing well in my career, but that might not actually be what their real dream is. Perhaps they want to go out and get re-educated in a different area, but they're not focusing on that. So they might do well in other areas. But if we want to achieve our dreams, we need to focus on it intently and place our energy on it so that we can get really clear in our minds as to how we can go forward and achieve it. And I love this language. Listen to this. She said, manifestation is about channeling your ultimate goal into everything you do. Scientifically speaking, manifestation works by literally breathing what you want. We breathe our goals into life. And she mentions 3 ways that we do that. We focus on it. First, she said, focus all of your senses on it, visualizing what it looks like, what it feels like, what it smells like. We want to get all of our attention on it, make it so tangible and so real that as a consequence, in our brain, when it becomes more tangible, it becomes more achievable as a result. See how that manifestation works? It starts to really change it from a wispy kind of mist of a dream into something more concrete that connects with all of our senses. It has our focused energy, mind, and attention on it so that we can pursue it and bring it into fruition. We breathe it into life. The third thing that she mentioned, and these were the three things, I apologize, I jumped ahead of myself. She said the third thing that we need to do outside of abundance mentality, outside of manifesting, focusing intently, she said was to have magnetic desire. I love that language that she used, a magnetic desire. And she explains that a magnetic desire is the strength of conviction that leads you to achieve something that was thought to be achievable. So we have a sense of conviction, but that conviction has to come from somewhere, doesn't it? It's not something that we can just pretend to have. We need to foster, fuel, and develop that conviction. And she explains that one of the ways that we do this, by channeling our optimism, she said we need to do a couple of things. And these were the three things that she mentioned. We want to do thorough research. We want to vocalize what we want, and we need to visualize it as well. This is really important. In doing the research, we take something that is primarily being a desire, something that is primarily emotional in nature, and we align the heart with the head. We do the research so that our mind can be convinced that what we're feeling is good and achievable and possible. We do the thorough research, we verbalize it by sharing it with others, and we also, like I said, visualize it, which kind of connects with the first one of that magnetic, with that manifestation, being clearly focused, appealing to all our senses. But as we visualize, as we verbalize, and as we do our research towards our goals and get keenly focused, that will encourage us to move into action. Of course, what we do is the fruit of what we think, feel, and believe. Yeah. So in order to do the right things, to see that law of attraction come into realization for us, we need to begin with feeding the belief systems. And that comes through manifesting, that having that clear energy, focused concretely, appealing to the senses, doing our research, becoming convinced, sharing that, visualizing it, verbalizing it, and then putting it into action. We can see from this that the law of attraction isn't something that is a passive law, is it? It's not something where we sit in our lounges, in our comfy sofas, and wish what a better life would look like, and then have this lottery winning kind of mentality. That I remember a few years ago, my brother was visiting from New Zealand in England, and we were together visiting some of his family, some of his in-laws, and he was telling them just how wonderful it was since he'd moved from the UK back home to New Zealand. And as he was talking, he was obviously filled with enthusiasm for the beautiful country that he was living in. And one of his, I think it was his sister-in-law, said to him, "Oh, Simon, that just sounds magnificent. You know what? I'm going to come and visit you. And she said it with confidence, like it's a done deal. And she goes, I'm going to come and visit you. But when I win the lottery, I'm going to go out to New Zealand and come and see you guys." And I sat back in my chair and I looked around. I was like, when you win the lottery? What kind of business strategy is that? What kind of plan is that? But you said it with such confidence, when I win the lottery. And sometimes people misuse the law of attraction in this way, with this winning the lottery mentality. That, oh, if I win the lottery, what would I do? That's not how the law of attraction works. We can see from these steps that Dr. Swart is sharing that this is a very proactive requirement on us to engage with the law of attraction, to bring it into fruition in our lives in a meaningful way. It is not a wish list. It's not throwing out nice dreams like Chinese lanterns into space, and just seeing where they land. That's not how it works. So again, just to recap on the three things that we've said so far: the abundance mentality, believing that there is more good stuff to go around than we currently have. The author Jeannie is asking is Dr. Tara Swartz. She's a professor at MIT and also at King's College in London. So you'll find her, I'm sure, if you Google her. So manifestation, having that belief again, like I said, that abundance, that there is more than enough to go around, that leads us to be generous, which builds connections. It leads us to be trusting during difficult times, which gives an anchor to our soul to encourage us to endure the tough stuff and hang in there. It keeps us solid and grounded. It helps us to weather the storms and see the future in a positive outlook. And of course, again, that is also something I believe that is super contagious when it comes to building relationships. The other thing, manifestation, focusing our energy on the right things. If we have a goal, if we have an ambition, that we capitalize on it, we focus on it, we put our attention, our energy on it, we connect all of our senses to it, we make it clear, visual, compelling. We also have a magnetic desire which we build. One thing that I've learned over the years as I have strived in my personal development pursuits is that our desires are things that we train, that we educate, that we tutor in order for us to be in control of them versus them being in control of us. So we need to educate our desires. And we do that by doing research. We do that by visualizing, and we do that by verbalizing. And as we tap into those three things, we can strengthen our resolve and our desire and put it into action in a way that is supported with conviction. The fourth thing, moving on then, is patience. She said, just like every project, building the skills to achieve our goals and working on our attitude to life doesn't happen overnight, which means we need to be patient with ourselves. This is, interestingly, she is referring to the law of attraction here, our application of it. She's referring to it as a skill that we develop over time, not something that we just master in a moment. So we need to have patience as we learn these skills. And I love that old proverb, in patience, possess ye your souls. It's so true, isn't it? And if we really want to tap into this power and unleash it with all of its potency and all of its force for good in our lives, then we certainly need to learn patience in the process as we acquire these skills. She says, by vocalizing and visualizing our dreams, we ease the brain into thinking that they are indeed attainable and that we can do it. The act of repeating to ourselves that we have the strength to reach out, strength it takes to reach out for what we want, will take time. I share that as an assurance message that it will take time to master, but master it we can if we are consistent and if we are patient. Patience and consistency seem to go together. And as I look at the patterns required for building a Nikken business, when we talk about reaching out, contacting people daily, adding names to our list daily, that type of thing, one of the things that people often overlook is the necessity of the daily rhythms. Sometimes we have these fits and bursts, this feast and famine approach to building. We'll do very little, then we'll do a big amount, then we'll do very little, and we'll do big enough, and that big chunk does us for some time. But the reality is, we change as individuals more by being consistent in our activity versus going through this metaphorical process of feast and famine with our activities. By being consistent, we change our nature and we change our convictions. And when our nature and our convictions are improved and we become better as a result of that as human beings, we will start to experience different results. So I think that's really important. Now she said the fifth point, and I love this because she adds an element here that I was glad she did. She said the fifth point that we need to have is harmony. And what does she mean by harmony? She said at the core of rewiring our brain is the idea, rewiring our brain is the idea and the mind that the mind and the body need to exist in perfect harmony in order to bring all the chances to make our dream come true. She said this will give us balance and mindfulness to make good choices that advance our goals. But she adds a third element. She said harmony between our logical brain, which is the cortex, and our emotional brain, which is the limbic system, and the gut. It's interesting that she included the gut. And understanding the signals they send us is at the core of unleashing our brain's power. I'll read that out again. Harmony between our logical brain, the cortex, our emotional brain, the limbic system, and our gut. And understanding the signals that they send us is at the core of unleashing the brain's power. She said, and we can only truly understand them if we are in harmony with our mind and our body. We need to make sure that we have connection, synchronicity, harmony between those three places: our mind, our heart, and our gut. I love that. The gut is where we feel our sense of instinct, isn't it? Our mind shows, we've done our research, intellectually, academically, we are on solid ground. We know what is required to do. We're developing skills to get the job done. Our heart shows our emotions, which gives our actions power and meaning and purpose. And our gut, where our instinct resides, where we feel this sense of this is a good decision to make, where we know when to take risks, when to step forward, when to step back, when to pause, when to sprint. Our gut instinct is something that we need to listen to as we recognize the balance and harmony of our mind and heart being linked together. What a profound thing to ensure we do. It's also interesting, just as a side note, scientifically or biologically, that when we think of the happy hormones, dopamine, serotonin, that 90% of serotonin is created in the gut, not the head. So I know she's not talking about the gut in that context, but if that's the place that creates the happy hormones more than anywhere else in the body, then we want to make sure biologically, I think, that we are looking after ourselves physically as well as emotionally and psychologically. I think that's something to consider as well as a side note. The last point she makes, I think, is great as well. She said, we also need to have universal connectedness, being connected with people and the world. Let me read up this here. I like what she says here. Universal connection is the idea that we're all connected to each other in the universe. It's about the way the world impacts on you and the impact you have on the world. Living in harmony with the world produces a sense of belonging and purpose, which is beneficial to the brain. Now, we use this phrase, we've used it for years, collaborative entrepreneurship. Listen to the language that she uses. Dr. Sarah says, compassion and collaboration with others releases oxytocin and dopamine, which contributes to pleasure. Compassionate collaboration. I like that language. Are we compassionate collaborators as we seek to build a worldwide, a global wellness community? Are we compassionate collaborators? I love that language. When we are, we will certainly get a greater sense of pleasure and purpose in the way that we not just achieve results, but in our journey along the road. These are some great ways. Abundance, manifestation, magnetic desire, patience, harmony, and universal connection. As we tap into those 6 principles, ladies and gentlemen, I am confident that we will be able to do a better job of utilizing this universal law of attraction, where we can connect ourselves with our aspirations, our goals, our dreams, and ambitions for a better life and a better opportunity to contribute and leave a legacy. These 6 ways really work. I wanted to share them with you, not just because they are, reported on, shared, endorsed, and given voice by a doctor of psychology at top universities around the world, but because I've experienced it in my own life. I've applied these principles. They work. They bring great results. And most importantly, not only do they bring results that are fulfilling, but they help us to be happier. I love that first law of abundance, that believing that there is enough of the good stuff to go around. I have learned when I've been wading through deep waters, when life is hard and it's tough, that conviction gives me a solid anchor that keeps me grounded, that keeps me secure, that keeps me able to endure the difficult times and keep moving forwards as a result. I'm thankful for that. And it certainly breeds generosity. What we've been freely given, we should freely give out to others. And when we feel that sense of generosity abounding in our lives, with that great desire to freely give to others, that which has been so freely given to us, then we start to see that law of attraction come into full effect. That one law alone, that one principle of abundance, that one belief that there is more than enough of the good stuff to go around. When we truly believe that and work that into our lives and express it with generosity and with big hearts to other people, I believe we certainly become more connected. We certainly find greater purpose. We certainly find more harmony with our heart and our mind. And as a result of that, we're also encouraged to be more patient, to hang in there, and we can see good things happen. So let's make some good things happen. I want to invite each of you to take some time over the coming couple of days, the next 48 hours, to sit down, to meditate, to be mindful, to have some alone time with your mind and your heart, to make it clear. What is it that you really want to seek? What are you really after? What does it look like? Connect your senses to it. Get specific, get tangible. Engage the mind as much as possible, along with all of its senses. Know what that is, what it looks like, what it feels like, what it tastes like, what it smells like. Get specific. And when you do that, let's apply these 6 principles and go after it with all the energy of heart and make it happen. We each are entitled to leave a legacy. Let's leave a great one. And let's make it as big as we can so that we can really seize the moment of our lives and make it count. Thank you all very much. And I look forward to seeing you on next week's call. Take care.